question or not? Just let me. I work with contracts, like every day.
Contracts, yeah.
Yeah, especially real estate contracts.
Okay.
And I saw a case that after 10 days they signed the contract. No, it's a contract now. They signed the offer. They changed the price. Is it like it's supposed to have a new offer, like a new everything? It's just a kind of amendment to change the price, and that confused me. Like, okay, I don't know if I have to consider real life or not. Or
Was there an accepted offer for a certain price?
yes.
And then later they changed it?
They agreed to change the price. And,
Did they agree to change the price?
the seller informed.
Okay, listen to this. This is a question. I need to address this because whenever you have real life things, they can confuse you because sometimes we put boundaries around things and what we're learning isn't quite right. So what I'm hearing you say is there's a contract
Yes.
for one price
Yes.
and it's accepted.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And then later what happens?
10 days later, they increase the price.
They ask for more.
Yes.
And what's the other side say?
They agreed. After 10 days, the first price.
So they agreed to the second price.
Yes.
That's, unless there's something about that contract that certainly doesn't make sense. But we run to the side. It says that if no one complains about it, like what are you going to do? Sue them? That's the question. Would you sue? If you're not going to sue, you're not really in a position to do anything else.
Okay. If you accept the new price, then it's a new price. It's a one. But
It
it's
shouldn't
not
be
quite
because it's
correct.
not actually a contract because there's no consideration, probably. But sometimes it's easier to just break the rules and not do it, not have a contract, but everyone pays and everything else. It's sometimes easier, right? But that does not sound to be, I can't see any way that that could possibly be valid. Without knowing more about it.
Yeah.
Without actually seeing it and looking at it, stuff, it's hard to tell.
That's
But
what
based on
I-
what you've learned in this class, that's not a contract.
No.
So now comes the question, are you going to honor something that you don't have any obligation to in order to keep things simple or whatever? Sometimes people do that. Okay? Okay. Any other questions? You ready? We'll deal with flaws tonight. I think we're done with elements, right? We've talked about intention to create legal relationship. What's the test? We've talked about consensus. What's the test? What? If I talk to you like that, would you be pissed off? Okay, speak up. Is what was offered the same as what was accepted, which requires you to understand offers, what aren't offers, what is part of the offer, what there. Okay, consideration. What's the test? Are you making it up as you go along? A little bit. Did both sides give something that they did not already have or have the right to? Right? Okay. And what's legality? What's the depth? Are we done?
Public policy. Does it limit one side's ability to limit?
Yeah, there are two tests. That's where we got to, right? We went through all that stuff. Have I missed anything? Have I given you homework and we haven't gone through it? Nothing like that? Okay, good. almost correct, but it's not quite. There's a bit of a twist to it along this fourth element. But basically, this, you get a contract. And that means one side, for sure, is bound. But there are these things called flaws. When a flaw is triggered, they're going to give one side a choice as to what they do with that contract. One of the people in the contract gets a choice. They can either keep the contract or they can cancel it, basically, and not be able to be sued for breach, even though there was a contract. You understand that? So, I'm going to just tighten this up a tiny bit because I haven't in the past, and sometimes students have become a little bit confused about how to work this. So, when would they keep the contract? Even if there's a flaw? This is an easy question. It shouldn't be too hard.
If they still agree with it, or if it's a benefit to them?
They still want it, right? But if something particularly has changed, or they weren't that happy to begin with, or something has, or it's a bad deal, and they realize it, this gives them the opportunity to cancel it. So they'll cancel it when they don't want that deal, or something has changed, or something's been triggered that they don't want to have to abide by. So you can't tell whether they're going to keep it or walk away without knowing what the facts are. The facts will tell you, what would the person do in this circumstance. So I think I'm going to deal with the first flaw. It's probably the most complicated. It has to do with what's called capacity. This is not the test, but it's the reason for the rule. So, historically, the law has deemed certain people to not have enough brain capacity to actually be able to contract. And you'll understand this when I list these people. When you're drunk, when you're insane, when you're a minor, or when you're a woman.
What?
You don't have any brain, you're a woman. Yeah, and you should. That's good. So this actually used to be the rule. This used to be the rule. In Canada, women were lumped in with drunks, insanes, infants, 4-year-olds, and they said that's the brain capacity that a woman had. And she would never be able to understand things as complicated as obligations under a contract. And therefore she couldn't make contracts. And that actually existed till less than 100 years ago. We're going to cross that one out, so don't use that, because it did change as a result of a case that said women are people too. And it's called the People's Case. And it's called Women Are People Too. And when was that, folks? It was 1920s, I know that. I don't remember the exact year. 27? 25, 22? I always get the year mixed up. When was it? Check it out. When was the People's Case? Nellie McClung. Women are people too. Really? Is that what's coming up? The person's case, right? So I didn't make that out. Google just proved me right. So that's what this was about. So the way that this kind of starts is, if you're drunk, you're insane, you're a minor, you can't really be expected to make realistic obligations under a contract. But it's not quite, if you're drunk, your contracts don't matter. Because there's actually a big problem with this, okay? So let's use one in the middle here, okay? Let's say you got a serious mental illness and we call you insane. If you couldn't make contracts, if you didn't have any obligation, if you didn't have to pay for your stuff, don't worry about that piece of crap. Would people sell you stuff?
Nope.
So where would you get food from? Because people wouldn't sell it to you if they found out you didn't have to pay for it. They're just saying, we're not selling to you. You don't have a brain, and you're not going to get bound in a contract, so we're not going to do that. So that would actually lead to a very bad result for these people. Everyone thinks it's kind of good for them if they didn't have to back by contracts, because they make all these contracts so they don't have to follow through it. But the reality is it wouldn't take long for people to stop selling to you. And then you can't. So we can't have a rule that these people can't be bound in contracts. It won't work. It's actually too hard on these people. So we have to deal with what happens. And this comes under a flaw that we call capacity. Capacity is your brain capacity, your ability to make contracts. So we're going to start now with the test, okay? So the first question is either side drunk, insane, or a minor? Where's the Jenna? You're the Jenna over here? The Jenna? Okay, watch this, okay? So I'm going to say this piece of chalk for $1. Will you take it?
Yeah.
Let's just deal with the capacity issue. Is she drunk?
No.
How do you know?
Give him a whack. Is she drunk? You should be able to smell. Is she?
Something without smell.
Oh, an expert. All right. Is she drunk, folks?
No.
Is she insane?
No.
Is she a minor?
No.
Am I drunk? Not tonight. Last week? You did see me. No. Am I drunk? Don't even start this, okay? Am I insane? We're going to say no. You're insane, right? Oh, I'll give you this. Am I a minor? Am I under the age of 18?
No.
What?
20, 25.
We're all 25 in our heads, folks. Trust me. It'll stay there. All right. So, how many questions did I ask?
Three.
No, I didn't.
6.
That's a better answer. Shh! Put that away. There's 6. 6 questions. The question is either side drunk, insane, or a minor? Which means you must look at her and me. You can't just look at her, and you can't just look at me. You got to ask both. And the answer is no. We're done with capacity. So it's easy when it's not there, which it's not going to be in many circumstances, right? But where we run into a problem is, what if somebody is drunk? What if somebody is insane? What if somebody is a minor? Because sometimes they can use the flaw, and sometimes they can't. Are you with me on this so far? So, how do we figure out what's the right answer with a fact? Well, we're going to deal with minors first because they're the biggest problem. They're the hardest one to deal with. And to understand this, I'm just going to step ahead a bit, then I'm going to come back, okay? When someone chooses to use a flaw, When they say, I am walking away from this contract because I have a flaw and it lets me walk away, that is called repudiating the contract. Repudiating basically means canceling. Okay? So, with minors, we determine if they're bound by going through a flow chart. This flow chart is to take the law that exists, or one version of the law that exists for minors, and takes you from a question to a firm answer. So, you have to understand what we're asking and what it means in order to determine whether or not a minor is going to be bound. So, if you have a minor, the first question you have to ask is the contract for necessities? Is the contract for necessities? So what we're asking is the minor actually buying or getting a necessity in that contract? And in order for you to answer this, you have to know what necessities are. So, what's a necessity?
Clothing?
Okay, I heard food and clothing. Yeah. Shelter, I heard those. Those are really good answers. Okay. So what type of food? What type of clothing? So if they go buy a pair of $300 Joey Hilfiger, the racist guy's jeans, is that a necessity?
Basic.
What?
Basic clothing.
When's it not basic? If as long as you have underwear on, are you okay? And everything else is.
How to determine what is basic or not.
That's a problem. You see this? The same thing applies to food. What's food mean? Well, you know what food means, folks. I imagine you've seen some at some point in your life, right? What's it mean, though?
Sustenance.
Is T-bone steak necessity, though? What about beluga caviar? Okay, I'm just going to step over to the side and ask this question, because how many of you have you ever had caviar? Put up your hands if you've eaten it. What color was it?
Black,
You have black?
the dark one.
Oh. What'd you have?
I think it was orange.
What do you mean orange?
Yeah, like salmon roe is orange.
Oh.
Depends on the fish.
Yeah, I know. Was it expensive?
I don't know, I didn't pay for it.
What? Was it expensive?
No.
What do you mean no?
Usual?
I don't know what the usual is. So is caviar a necessity?
No.
No. So what about ground beef? If you buy ground beef, is that buying a necessity? So remember that beard thing we were talking about before? Remember that? Did we talk about the beard? Do you remember that? Where I have a beard, and you say I got a beard, and then I take it all, and you say I got no beard, and I say okay, I leave one, or I have. We have that problem again, and it's too hard to deal with. Okay, it's too hard to deal with. So we are going to basically say, if you eat it, it's food. Okay, so I don't care if it's beluga caviar or anything else, and that makes it a necessity. Any food, we're going to call it a necessity. Any clothing, I don't care whether it's $5,000 suit, Armani suit. We're going to call it a necessity. Same is true of shelter, right? You don't say, okay, we'll give you this box, to live behind the museum with, right? And then everything else is a luxury. We can't do that. At what point does a dwelling go over to the top. Because we can't determine this within any bounds of this course, we're just going to treat them all as being necessity. So what if they went and bought a hoagie from 7-Eleven? Is that a necessity?
Yeah.
I don't think that's food. I don't think it is. I think it's an edible food substitute product.
But you eat it,
Yeah, but I might eat grass sometimes or dirt.
then it's food.
Okay. Well, I'll give you that, folks. So, for necessities, the question is food, shelter, clothing of any form. There's two more, though, you missed. One is something you need for work. So, for example, to get to work, you've got to have a hard hat, and you go buy a hard hat. Well, I wouldn't call that clothing. or let's say that you need a car, because you're going to operate a taxi and you have to have your own vehicle, something like that. If you need it for work, we're going to call it a necessity because you use the money you get from work to buy food, shelter, and clothing. So that stuff gets you there. So we call it. And the fifth one is money. Because sometimes the miner is going to get money. So now the test for necessities. Remember, everything has a test in this section. Test for necessities is food, shelter, clothing, something you need for work, or money. So that's the first question. I have this written down in my notes, tiny little letters. I don't even know if I can read it. Good thing I've done this long enough I can probably remember it. Who spelled that like that? Necessities. Who said I wasn't drunk tonight? All right. So we're back over here. Necessities. Okay. So if the answer is no, then we ask the question: is the contract complete? And again, you have to know what these things mean, or they will send you on the wrong thing. Contract complete means both sides have completed all of their obligations. So when we're talking about the contract being complete, we're not saying this. Are all the elements there and you have a contract? We're saying, has both sides done their obligations? So if I... Jenna? Buy this chalk for $1, you say yes, let's say you're 18. Is the contract for necessities? Is it food?
No.
Well, you could eat. No. Shelter? Clothing? You think she's going to wear the chalk? Okay. Something she needs for work? Do you need chalk for work?
She needs to live.
That's not the question. Does she need chalk for work? Okay. And is it money? No. Not a necessity. Is this contract complete right now?
She accepted you as well.
It's not what we're asking. I can understand why you would think that. That's not what we're dealing with here. We're not dealing with, is the contract have all the elements? We're asking, has the obligations under this contract been completed?
Yes.
Yes.
What's the obligation?
To give her the check.
And what's her obligation?
To pay.
Has that happened?
No.
No.
Not yet.
Then there's the contract completed.
No.
If she say yes, it's contract.
No. That's what I don't want you to do. We're not asking, I'll say it again, whether all the elements are here. We're asking, are all the obligations completed? For you to say yes here, she would have to have given me the $1 and I would have to have given her the chalk. That hasn't happened. This contract is not completed. Are you sure you understand that?
There's a contract, but neither of you did his part of the deal, of the contract.
So when we're on this question, we're asking, have both sides, both, done all that they have to under that contract?
Okay, not to perform.
It is performance. Has it been performed?
No.
That's what this is dealing with. Okay? So, if you had trouble with that, you're really going to have trouble with this. I've struggled for a way to do this in an easier to understand method, and I tried it one year and ended up in a big mess. So I'm just going to go back to the basics, okay? Okay. What this next question is dealing with is the ability to return the goods. So, this next question, are goods returned if applicable? What this applicable means are the goods can be returned. Okay? So, if you get to this point on the flow chart, you have to examine the nature of the item. And there are certain things that you're not going to be able to return. What's one of those?
Food.
Food is a consumable. It's meant to be eaten. You could eat it. And therefore, it's gone. You don't want it back later. Okay? All right? So, what else can't be returned?
Gasoline.
Gasoline is a consumable. It's meant to be burned up in your car. You can't really return it if it's been burned up. What else? You've missed the big one.
Service.
Yes, who said that? That was a good answer. How do you return a service? If I ask you to tattoo Mona Lisa on my arm, and you do it, can I return it?
No.
So, the trick here is anything that can't be returned is treated as if it was returned.
Can you go again?
Anything that can't be returned is treated as if it was returned. That is exactly backwards from what you would think. So if you're saying that's exactly backwards from what I would think, you've got the answer right. Let me try and do this a different way. This is getting very close to the point in which you can cancel the deal, okay? You cannot hold on to a physical item. You can't keep it when it could be returned and cancel the deal too. If you want to cancel the deal, you have to return it if it can be returned. But if it can't be, it's treated as if it was returned. So we're going to deal with this. If this is yes, the minor can repudiate. If this is no, no should be here. They're bound. Okay, let's walk our way through this. I'm going to make Genesis 17 again. Not so long for you, a bit longer for me. That's why it's an easier stretch with you. Ready? Buy this chalk for me for $1? Okay. If we go through all the elements, we're going to come to the conclusion that contract is there. There's intention to create legal relationship. It's, right, arm's length and commercial. There's consensus. What was offered, this chalk per dollar. What was accepted, this chalk per dollar. Since what was offered was the same as what was accepted, we got consensus. Consideration. She's promising to give me $1. I'm promising to give her the chalk. We're both giving something we did not already have or have the right to. And do you have to break a law to buy a piece of chalk? No. Does it restrict anyone's ability to earn a living? No. So we have a contract. But she's 17. So now we're going to go through the flow chart. Is the contract for necessities? No. Is the contract completed?
No.
Has she given me the chalk?
No.
Or I give her the $1? What if she gives me the $1? Is the contract completed?
No.
Why not?
It's one side.
Exactly. It's both sides completed. Right? So, okay. Goods returned if applicable. What are the goods?
Chalk.
Can she return this?
Yes.
Yes.
No. Why not?
It's not consumption.
It can be used. I don't have it yet.
Yeah. How does she return it? She doesn't even have it. Right? So, what happens? Is she holding on to the chalk and asking for the deal to be repudiated? Is she keeping the chalk and trying to cancel the deal? Is she doing that? That means that answer becomes yes. Because she can't return the chalk. Therefore, it's treated as if it was returned. Why can't she return it? She never had it. That gets treated as if it is returned, and in that case, she could cancel the deal if she wanted to. Get it? What?
Yeah, I get it, but it does not make sense.
No.
This is meant to keep this from happening. I give her the chalk. She hasn't given me the $1. And then she says, give me my money back. I'm not giving you the money back. Give me the chalk back. She goes, no, I'm going to keep the chalk, but I'm a minor. You have to give me the money back. She can't do that. She cannot hold on to the item. That's all that this is dealing with. If an item can be returned, if it can be returned, she has to in order to get to here. Otherwise, she'll be over here. If an item can be returned, she's got to bring it back. Now do you understand that? If it can be returned, she has to. In every other circumstance, it's treated as if it was returned. What you can't do is keep an item that she could return. So I toyed with this and I ended up in a mess. I changed this question. Is she keeping an item that she could return? And then I don't know. It ended up kind of, I don't know what happened, but it did not go well. So it was confusing. Are you with me on this so far? Okay. The other thing that I'm going to throw out, may as well when we're throwing the curveballs, is it doesn't have to be in its original condition. It's just got to be returned. So, normal wear and tear, she could still return it and repudiate. So let's go to the other side. If you say it's not for necessities, but it is completed, which means she's given me the $1 and I've given her the chalk, it's completed. We get to a yes, it was completed. The next question here is the contract fair? What this is meant to deal with, how many of you remember being 12? 12th birthday party? Anybody? No one can, eh? I guess I'll have to try and remember 12. Nope, that didn't work. So, how many of you know a 12-year-old then? Are they stupid sometimes? They get all excited about certain things. You know, they want a fishing rod, and they get their mind on that one little track. So because of that, children are easy to take advantage of, right? Because they have no idea how much something's worth, and they may pay ridiculous amounts for something. And that's what this is meant to deal with. So it's not for necessities. The contract is complete. Was it fair? So when we're asking was it fair, what we're really asking is, were they ripped off because they were a kid? Another way of asking that same question is, would a prudent adult have paid that price? So it's not, is it expensive? It's, did they pay too much? More than an adult would have paid for that same thing. And that's what contract fair means. If the answer is no, it wasn't fair, the kid can cancel. If they want to. They don't have to, but they can. If the answer is yes, then we get to a new question, which is, were the ordered goods delivered? What does that mean? What does delivered mean?
Given.
So I'm just going to share with Jenna. Tell me when this is delivered. Now?
No.
Now?
No.
Now?
No.
Now? Now? Now?
No.
I say yes. They're within her control now. Does that have a touch it? But can she pick it up now? Can she control it now? Yeah. So I say that's delivered. Okay. You disagree? You can.
How long does it bring the stuff left on the workshop? Yeah, they're actually if I were $1,000 of wood to build another shed and shows up in my driveway and I get home, I actually go in there to get it almost.
So you're not a miner. Are you? In this circumstance, she is here. She can now pick it up. She knows it's there. We're going to call that delivered. I'm not going to deal with that situation. What if I put it behind her? She didn't know it was there. Or what if I dropped it in her backpack and she didn't know? Okay. Because that is debatable.
Right.
But I don't want to go into too much complication here. That's delivered. Okay? So, if the ordered goods are delivered, if the answer is no, she can repudiate. If the answer is yes, she's bound. And what bound means is, even though she's a minor, she cannot use the flaw. That contract is not flawed. So if we go over to this side, and we say it is necessities, then we deal with a lot of the same issues, but they're sometimes in a different place. So the first question is the contract fair? It means the same thing as over here. If the answer is no, they can repudiate. This is the shortest distance between the question and the answer. It's 2 steps. Necessities, yes. Fair, no, you have an answer. Right? You see that? So over here, it's 1, 2, 3 steps. So depending on what the facts are, determines how many questions you have to ask to determine if a minor can repudiate. Okay? So if we go over here, then we ask, ordered goods delivered. Okay. Let's walk you through a couple of fact situations so you can understand this. Let's say a kid decides to take his girlfriend out. He's 17. He wants to impress her. He takes her to the nicest restaurant in town. He walks into the restaurant with a girlfriend and says, "Oh." They say, "What do you order?" He says, "What's the most expensive thing on your menu?" And he says, they say, "Oh, it's duck l'orange." I learned how to pronounce that. It's l'orange. Okay, duck l'orange. Okay. It's $450 and it takes 3 hours to prepare. And they say, "Bring it to me, garçon." Right? Showing how impressive he is. All right. So they sit at the restaurant. They bring this thing together. They get it all plated and put it in nice silver things, and they're bringing it away to the little boy who's playing with his iPad. I know he's taking a picture. It's okay. And they're bringing it to him, and they're about to put it on his table, and he goes, "I changed my mind. Just bring me a cheeseburger." Now remember, he ordered the things. That makes the contract there. He's accepted their offer of $450. There's a contract there, right? The question is, does he have to pay for it? Go through the flow chart. Tell me what the answer is. How many of you know the answer? Put up your hands if you know the answer. You got it all figured? What's the rest of you doing?
Guessing.
What?
Guess.
Guessing? Is that what you said? Can I have your name? I'm not going to pick on you. I promise not to pick on you. I won't, okay? Just want to know your name. What's your name? Tash. Is it Tash? Okay. So Tash,